All right, welcome everybody. Let's do this. Level 2 of implicit differentiation. So these questions get a little more difficult. Find dy dx in terms of x and y. All right, so what is move number 1? We differentiate both sides with respect to x. So d dx on both sides. D dx on both sides. Okay, so let's take the derivative. The derivative of -3 is 0. What is the derivative of x times y? Notice over here, for this, we will have to use a product rule. So what is the product rule? So if we have some f times g, right? Something times something, how will it be? It will be derivative of the first times the second plus the derivative of the second times the first. Okay? So what is, now once you get to this point, just organize yourself. What is your f? What is your g? Your f is x. Your g is y. What is the derivative of f? Well, that's just 1. What is the derivative of g? This is dy dx. Oh, sorry. Camera angle. Yes, there we go. Okay. So, yeah. Now here, what do we need to do? We need to put the derivative of this xy. So it'll be f prime g. So what is our f prime? It's 1. So it's 1 times, what is your g? Your g is y. So it's just y plus, now g prime, which is dy dx, times f. But what's f? F is x over here. Minus, now we need to take the derivative of y squared. So this would be -2y dy dx equals 4x. Okay. Now once we get to this point, what do we want to do? We want to get the dy dx's by itself so we can factor out a dy dx. So to do that, we're going to subtract y. Okay, so now this becomes dy dx times x minus 2y dy dx equals 4x minus y. Now that we have the dy dx is by itself, let's factor out a dy dx from each of these. So now we have dy dx times x minus 2y equals 4x minus y. And then we're going to divide. Now once we get to this point, we're just going to divide both sides by x minus 2y. X minus 2y. This cancels. So now we have dy dx is equal to 4x minus y over x minus 2y. Okay. Try this one by yourself. See what happens. Okay. So let's imagine you tried it by yourself. Let's check. What's the first move? Differentiate both sides with respect to x. Okay, so I take d dx on both sides. So what is the derivative of -3y squared? That should be -6y dy dx minus 1 equals, okay, now here, what do we need to do? We need to do a product rule for this. So product rule. And what is our product rule? Some f times g is equal to f prime g plus g prime f. Okay, so what is our f? What is our g? Our f is -5x will be our f. Our f prime will be -5. Our g is y. Our g prime is dy dx. Okay? If you felt like you had confusion on what would be the f and what would be the g, please bring that up tomorrow or email me so I could clarify why the f is -5x and the g is y. Okay, so now we just have to put f prime g plus g prime f over here. So f prime is negative 5 times g, so it's negative 5y, plus g prime, so it's dy dx, times f, which is negative 5x. Okay, and by doing that, notice that this will change this sign. So just to be a little extra, I'll just rewrite the whole thing equals negative 5y minus 5 dy dx. You could have rewritten this as this. Sorry, that should be a 5x here. Okay, because positive times a negative is a negative, and I just wrote the 5x here, and I brought the dy dx over here. Okay, it's still the same thing, but this looks a little more organized. Okay, now what's the next move once you get to this point? Get all the dy dx's on one side. Usually get it to the left side. Okay, so how would you do that? Let us add 1. We're going to also do what? We're going to add 5x dy dx on both sides, plus 5x, 5x dy dx. So you're just going to bring the minus 1 to this side, so, and you're going to bring the negative 5x dy dx to the other side. So how will it look like? Notice that this stays the same, the negative 6y dy dx. And then what did we do? We brought this to this side, so notice it becomes positive 5x dy dx equals negative 5y. And then what did we do? We brought this negative 1 to this side, so notice this becomes plus 1. Okay? Now, what was the purpose of bringing the dy dx's on one side? So you can factor out. So how do we factor this out? It'll be dy dx times negative 6y plus 5x equals negative 5y plus 1. And then once we get to this point, how do you get dy dx by itself? Just divide both sides by negative 6y plus 5x, negative 6y plus 5x. So now you have dy dx equals negative 5y plus 1 over negative 6y plus 5x. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. Alright, let's try one more question. And this is the big question over here. It's how do you find the second derivative? So here, let's imagine if you had something like this. If you had 10x cubed plus 5x squared minus 10x plus 2. What's the derivative? Well, the derivative of this is just 30x squared plus 10x minus 10. What would be the second derivative? Okay, you just take the derivative of this. So this is 60x plus 10. And you could keep going and so forth. So the idea with this question over here, don't get thrown off by this notation. Notice that y is y. But how can I show y prime? I could show y prime also as dy dx. Notice y double prime is the second derivative of the original y. So how do you show the second derivative of the original y in terms of this dy dx? It'll look like this, d squared y over dx squared. What if I wanted to do the third derivative? D cubed y over dx cubed. Okay, if you want it to be a little bit fancy, and so on and so on. So what this is asking us to do is, we're going to take the derivative of this, get a dy dx by itself, and then take the derivative of that. Okay, so first let's take the derivative of this with respect to x. Okay, so let's do d dx on both sides. Now, what is the derivative of 4y? It's 4 dy dx equals, the derivative of negative 3x squared is just negative 6x minus 2y dy dx. Okay? Let me move this up here. And we're going to find it, it's going to be at this point 1 negative 3. Okay, so now once we get to this point, just like we did before, let's get all the dy dx's on one side. So what are we going to do? Let us add 2y dy dx to the left side. 2y dy dx. Let's add it to the left side. So notice now we have 4 dy dx, and this should be a plus, 2y dy dx equals negative 6x squared. Now what are we going to do? We're going to... What happens next? We're going to factor out the dy dx. So now we have dy dx times 4 plus 2y equals negative 6x squared. Okay? And then how do we get dy dx by itself? Divide both sides by the 4 plus 2y, 4 plus 2y, and notice that dy dx is equal to negative 6x squared over 4 plus 2y. Okay? So congratulations, we have dy dx. But that's not what the question's asking us to do. The question is asking us to find d squared y over dx squared. So what we need to do is we need to take the derivative of this again. And then at the very end, we plug in the 1, negative 3. Okay? So let's try and do this as fast as possible. Here, let's continue here. Here we take d dx on both sides. So notice that this becomes d squared y over dx squared equals. Now, how do you actually continue with this? You need to use a quotient rule because you have one polynomial divided by another. So what is the quotient rule? Try and pause the video and write down what is the quotient rule, right? If I have some f divided by g and I take the derivative of it, it is f prime g minus g prime f over g squared. Okay, so now here, what is your f and what is your g? Here, your f is negative 6x squared. And what is your g? Your g is 4 plus 2y. What is your f prime? Your f prime is negative 12x. And what is your g prime? It is 4 plus 2 dy dx. Okay. So yeah. And now here, what do we do once we get to this point? Let's see. Once we get to this point, we have to actually plug in f prime g prime into here. So let me get a sticky note so I can continue a little bit within this. So how do you continue from here? We need to plug everything in here, right? So f prime is what? F prime, it's negative 12x times g. And what is g? It is 4 plus 2y. Minus g prime, which is 4 plus 2 dy dx times f, which is negative 6x squared. All over g squared. So it's 4 plus 2y, the whole thing squared. Okay, so this is what d squared y over dx squared, it's equal to this. Okay, I should just like put this right here. But then how do you continue from here? The idea is, if you go back to the problem, you're saying you have to do it at a point 1, negative 3. So notice that here your x is equal to 1 and your y is equal to negative 3. But then how do you actually, you're almost there, how do you actually continue with this? Anywhere you see x, I'm sorry, before you actually do that, notice you could simplify this a little more, because do you know what dy dx is? Yes, you do. Dy dx is equal to what? Is this. We put that in before. So notice that this just becomes negative 12x, 4 plus 2y, minus 4 plus 2 dy dx. I'm sorry, not dy dx, 4 times negative 6x squared over 4 plus 2y, and then what? Times negative 6x squared all over 4 plus 2y, the whole thing squared. So the idea is, once you get to this point over here, once you have this over here, and my bad, it's a little sloppy, 4 plus 2y, you have to plug in x equals 1 and y equals negative 3 into this whole entire thing, and then simplify it. And that'll be your solution. I would do that right now, but it is exactly 1:14, and I have to be in a class in exactly 1 minute. So have fun. Good luck with that. I'll see you tomorrow.